Let's make something with the 128 ScrawlrBox.
Hey Scrawlers, I'm Kat from ScrawlrBox and welcome back to another video. Today I've got the 128 ScrawlrBox and we're going to get into some of those tips and tricks as seen in this month's zine. Let's get into it.
A little reminder of what's inside the box. This month's ScrawlrBox is inspired by the whimsical abstract scenes from our featured artist, Rust and Paint. Plus, this month we teamed up with Winsor Newton to bring you art mail. Included in the postcard pack is a prepaid stamp to send off your work to Winsor Newton for an opportunity to feature in an exhibition. Everything you need is inside this box, and if this is your first time using watercolours, the zine features all sorts of tips and tricks on how to get to grips with your new supplies. So let's test some of these out. I'll be using the postcards from the box. These are an off-white paper ideal for wet mediums, and they're 300 GSM and 30% cotton. I've got my 2 pots of water at the ready, plus a ruler, eraser and pencil. Plus an extra special treat, I have a handmade palette made from our featured artist, Rust and Paint. It's super cute and has lovely little odd-shaped wells. If you saw our swatching video, I also used it there too. Okay, first things first, I'm going to prep by dotting some paint into those little wells. Then using a clean brush and clean water, I'll dot some water in to activate the pigment. So, I've got a plan. Having some sort of visual before you begin can help keep you on track, especially during the ugly stages. I'm going to start by doing a rough sketch, a really light guide. The background is going to be loose, so the pencil is just to ease my mind. By having a little sketch to look at instead of going straight in with paint, it sort of helps ease that blank page anxiety some people might get. It's also handy to keep some swatches about for reference. Let's crack on. We're going to mix the blue into the green. It makes really beautiful blue. Always mix up more than you think you need. You can reactivate it later if it dries. I'm going to lay down the darker colour at the bottom and add in more water to make it lighter as I reach the top of the page. I'm adding the water in using a charging technique so the pigment disperses. By using the blue paint water, I am adding literally the lightest blue I can achieve. While still wet, I dotted in more blue pigment. We want that pigment to granulate and be uneven for some lovely texture. Adding in clean water to edges will smooth out any harsh lines. And we're going to let that dry. Next up, we're going to add in some green for the lily pads. As you can see, that first one was not dry yet. And if that does happen, no worries, just blot some tissue onto it, pick up your pigment and do it again once it is dry. I was dotting in more green to the lily pads while they're still wet, so they're darker in some parts. And we're going to let that dry again and then add another layer of blue. I'm not following the same route I did before, so it dries uneven. That's the texture I want to achieve. Dotting in more pigment as I go along to add in even more texture. Happy with that, although I feel like it could do with a little more texture at the top. An easy way to do that is to wet the page and grab some tissue. You can use the tissue that comes in the box, just dab it down while still wet. Another way to add in more visual interest is by dotting pigment while the underlayer is still wet, but not completely wet. That way the pigment still blooms out slightly. Another way is to add splashes by tapping a loaded paintbrush gently onto the page. While that dries, I'm going to clean off this paint palette. And get some fresh water while we're at it too. Nice. Now that's dry, we're going to add in some subtle painted lines for a nod to the water. Still keeping things nice and loose. And we're going to build up that green for the lily pads. We want them to have a slightly more defined finish. Also adding in some markings to the lily pads too. Adding in some thicker bits of watercolour for little pops of colour. A little abstract nod to the flowers and buds using the purple and ochre colours. The less water, the more intense the pigment. It's looking quite fun now, and we're going to let that completely dry before we go in using our fineliner. And now you can add all the outlines you want with some fun marks to add in some character. If you see your pen nib getting a bit clogged, simply scribble on some clean paper. This liner goes over the paint with ease, but it will block in some occasions where the thicker layers of pigment lay. To finish, I'm adding a little border as I feel it brings the piece together, adding a little structure to the looseness. Also going to darken some of those areas because the more contrast the better. Once the fineliner ink is dry, it's fully permanent, so you can paint over it as much as you want and not worry about it smudging. Tips and tricks, done.
And there we have it, a few ways to use those tips and tricks to get creative with the 128 ScrawlrBox. Hope you found this video useful, and until next time, keep scrolling!
Thank you for watching! I think I managed to cram in as many tips and tricks as I could this time. If you made it this far, put a little frog emoji. Thanks, bye!